horrific, horrifying result for Chelsea. It has finished Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Chelsea 1 at Molineux, and it's so depressing, so deflating, because this isn't even a good Wolves side. There was a time over recent years where going to Molineux and getting a point was seen as a decent result, but they've been in terrible form, and we've played into their hands. You know, they didn't even want to win. They set up for a draw. They were totally happy with the point, and we have managed to capitulate and give them the 3 points. The 3 points that they didn't deserve. You know, the first half, it was all Chelsea. We totally dominated. Christian Pulisic, unplayable. Everything going down Chelsea's left. I think Ben Chilwell had more touches than any other player on the pitch. He was constantly a threat, constantly whipping the crosses in. Ultimately, one of his crosses led to our goal. An expert finish from Olivier Giroud. We'll come on to talk about him, no doubt, later, as well as some other Chelsea forwards. But we totally played into Wolves' hands. We've let them rile us. I think Chelsea are a very inexperienced side, and you could see that. You could see that today, because we managed to allow Wolves to frustrate us. They were bullies, Wolves. I've got no problem with that, by the way. That's not me having a pop. But they were bullies. They seemed to go in very aggressively. They were a very physical side, and ultimately they riled us. You know, there was the issue with the Neto dive, which clearly was a dive. Should have been booked. But yeah, ultimately we've really, really let ourselves down. Lots to be positive about for Chelsea, or some things to be positive about. I thought Christian Pulisic was masterful. Best player on the pitch in the first half. The way that he jinks around players is amazing. And his link up with Chilwell on one side bodes very well for Chelsea, because those two partnering on one side, Ziyech and James on the other, it will be a real threat when that starts clicking. But again, it was not good enough. And like I mentioned, this isn't a good Wolves team. You know, this is the longest that they haven't scored a goal since they've been back in the Premier League. About 300 minutes until they scored 2 there. 300 minutes without a goal, and then they get 2 against us. I mean, it's not a surprise. Raul Jimenez is obviously out, and we wish him well. But, losing Jota, losing Doherty, you would think that would be a depleted enough team for Chelsea to go there and get the 3 points, especially off the back of a very poor result at Goodison Park. And I played down the significance of the result against Everton. I said that simply losing at Everton isn't the end of the world, assuming that you go, bounce back, and claim 3 points against Wolverhampton Wanderers and then West Ham. No points in 2 games, and the nature of that defeat today is so bad. To lose from a winning position is so demoralising for that squad. So we were a goal up, we've lost the game. We had a point secured in the last minute. We've got nothing. It's really, really bad. Ultimately, we're going to have to not necessarily apportion blame, but explore why it's happened. And I think that the key reason here, it's Chelsea's German players. It's Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. They just weren't good enough today. Either of them. I mean, Kai Havertz especially. He needed to go off far earlier than he did. I think we should have got Kovacic on at half-time at the latest. I think he should have probably started the game, but half-time at the latest. He just looks totally out of his depth. Looks like he doesn't want to be there. It's reminiscent of Ozil, when Ozil's not up for it. Sadly, not the Ozil we know who can control and dictate the tempo of a game. Not that Ozil. The other one. The one who feels slightly lazy, slightly not bothered, slightly preoccupied. And yeah, it was really bad from him. I don't quite know what the answer is. People keep talking about COVID, and if it is COVID, obviously that is a legitimate reason for him to not be playing well. But if it is COVID, don't play him. Kai Havertz either needs to play at full capacity or not play, because his performances are atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And people demand patience. He's been playing for the same club in Germany since he was 14 years old. He's left that club. First time he's had to make a move like that, learning a new language in a new country, and I get all that. These are all legitimate reasons for his performances to not be good enough. But then you can't start him, particularly when you have somebody as gifted as Mateo Kovacic on the pitch. Like, Kai Havertz is becoming a problem. He's costing Chelsea points. And I know he's expensive, 72 million quid, but it's insignificant. You can't play him because he's not justifying his position with his performances. His performances are so poor. He is the worst player on the pitch for Chelsea. undoubtedly the worst player on the pitch. And annoyingly, you know he's going to be the worst player on the pitch before he kicks a ball. He's just not up to it at the moment. So that really does need to be looked at. And Timo Werner, I mean, that geezer misses sitters. How many sitters does he miss? Like, I'm sure if somebody were to do a compilation of goals that he has, or opportunities that he's ultimately missed, you'd be watching it for about 3.5 minutes. Put a few ads on it in YouTube. It's really poor, really poor. I think we should probably give a bit of credit to Wolves. I thought Podence was amazing. It's funny, isn't it? You know when you have these little flickers of things that you can remember? Like, it's not an explicit memory. It's not something that I should remember. But ages ago, I remember watching Olympiacos play Tottenham in the Champions League. And, you know, it's a game I was watching. I had it on at home, but I wasn't particularly enthralled by it. But I probably had it on while I was, you know, surfing through the internet on my phone or whatever. And this fella caught my eye, this Podence. I was like, God, this boy that Olympiacos have is a baller. He's a player. And he's proved it again. I mean, we saw it very recently. We know how good he is. That goal he scored against Arsenal, didn't he? You know, when it bounced back to him and he was totally justified to go down and win a penalty. But it bounced back to him and he flicked it up, just gently lifted the ball over the challenge before pinging it in. Incredible goal from him for that one. And he's done it again today. Exceptional goal. I've seen that there's been certain criticism. Perhaps Reece James could have done more. Perhaps Edouard Mendy could have done more. I disagree with both of those appraisals. I think at certain points you have to just take your hat off and say it's a good goal. Good goal and well played. And Podence certainly did that. And the naivety for Neto's goal. How Zuma's not closer, I don't know. But Chelsea, you know, we're going for broke. And we shouldn't have been doing that. We really shouldn't. So it's worrying, and it's the game management that isn't quite right at the moment. But we are a young side. When you're this young, you're this naive, you're this inexperienced, these things are going to happen. Young teams, new teams, with players making their debuts for new clubs in this same season are going to drop points at places like Molineux and at places like Goodison Park. Ultimately, it isn't a surprise. But we really do need to see a change here. Chelsea do need to kick into gear. I don't quite know what the answer is. I think the team selection is very important. I mean, I could almost do a video in itself on Kai Havertz and Timo Werner. Should I do that? If you like that idea, will you do me a favour? Just mention it in the comment. In fact, just give this video a like if you like the idea of a video dedicated to Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. And if it gets enough of a reaction, I'll do it. If you don't like the idea, don't like the video. And then you'll never see it. But ultimately, this is a shocker. And Chelsea have, we have a few days now to regroup, get focused, get harmony in this squad. Make sure that we pick the right side. Get Kai Havertz out of the team, for starters. And make sure that we get a win against a very good West Ham side under David Moyes. We have to change it around. Because if we're not very careful, this bad week could cost us a season. You know, a bad week in the Premier League at the moment, you're playing 3 games. One bad week can cost you an entire season. So we must bounce back. Our title aspirations, our title aspirations are hanging by a thread. They aren't quite on the ash heap of history yet. But we have to make it. We have to make it count. We're lucky that Liverpool are playing Tottenham, so one of them will drop points. But we now must make it count against West Ham, because if we don't, you can almost write it off. Real shame. Oh dear, oh dear. Depressing. I'm out in a bit.